Labour demands a full inquiry into allegations of Tory sleaze. Sir Keir Starmer wants Boris Johnson to explain how the refurbishment of his flat at Downing Street was paid for.
It matters because it's about integrity and it's about taxpayers' money. Every day there's more evidence of this sleaze and, frankly, it stinks.
Also on the programme. Anger from families as India records almost 1 million new COVID cases in just 3 days, overwhelming the health service.
The Women's Six Nations title, they are champions again in 2020.
Joy for England as they beat France to retain the Six Nations trophy. And the man inspired by Captain Tom inspires others around the world to raise even more cash for the health service.
This is ITV News with Sameena Ali Khan.
Good evening. Labour has demanded an inquiry into how Boris Johnson's Downing Street flat refurbishment was funded. It follows damning allegations from Dominic Cummings, who claimed his former boss once had possibly illegal plans to get Tory donors to pay for it. Sir Keir Starmer said that and other allegations of so-called sleaze stinks, adding if there's nothing to hide, all the details should be published. Downing Street say the Prime Minister has done nothing wrong. David Wood reports.
Who is making key decisions here, how some things are paid for and which businesses have influence are central to a series of damaging accusations swirling around Downing Street. Other than denials, no word from Number 10 today, nor from the home of the PM's former advisor, who's made the latest criticisms. Dominic Cummings was ousted from Downing Street in November and had kept a lid on his revenge until now. He's questioned the PM's competence and integrity. That has angered some Tory MPs.
When I described Mr Cummings as an unelected foul-mouthed oaf, I warned the Prime Minister to his face that if he didn't get rid of him, there was a chance that Mr Cummings would bring him down.
And are these allegations serious enough, do you think, to bring the Prime Minister down?
There are allegations that will have to be investigated, certainly.
They include into texts between entrepreneur James Dyson, who was trying to build ventilators, and the Prime Minister about tax. But there are more questions.
Dominic Cummings has claimed that the Prime Minister interfered with an inquiry in Downing Street into who leaked information about England's November lockdown before the PM was able to announce it. Mr Cummings also claims that when looking to renovate the Downing Street flat, the Prime Minister had initially been looking at ways of funding it that Mr Cummings claims were possibly illegal. And the Labour leader isn't happy just relishing his role as spectator in this saga. He's also sticking the boot in, calling for a full inquiry into the PM's flat makeover.
You've got the former most senior advisor to the Prime Minister saying he's fallen way below the standards of integrity that are needed for the office of Prime Minister. You've got the former Minister, Dominic Grieve, saying there's a vacuum of integrity. And every day there's more evidence of this sleaze and, frankly, it stinks.
Downing Street insists the PM's done nothing wrong, but Labour isn't planning to allow him the chance to kick the allegations away.
David, these claims are just not going away. How serious is this for the Prime Minister?
Certainly opposition parties will look to keep this as serious as possible for as long as possible. But I think in the short term, at least, it's not as serious as that because of the reaction from two important groups. One, Tory MPs, those who I've spoken to today, they're trying to keep out of it. They're happy that the PM paid for the renovations to the flat himself and for his other denials. The other key group, voters. Lots of elections going on at the moment. No sign today so far that this is cutting through with campaigning.
David, thank you. India has recorded almost 1 million new cases of COVID infections in just 3 days as the country struggles to cope with the relentless onslaught of the pandemic. It now has 16 million confirmed cases, second only to the United States. The situation is worsening by the day, with hospitals taking to social media to plead with the government for more oxygen. A warning that this report from Neil Connery contains upsetting pictures.
India's hospitals have never seen anything like this as COVID tightens its grip. A record 2,600 deaths in the past 24 hours. Overwhelmed by rising cases, for many of those seeking treatment, it's too late. For their relatives, anger in the midst of grief. And still more arrivals. Don't worry, this man says to his mother, urging her to keep breathing. He then lies on the road protesting to try and get her admitted. Others have turned to this makeshift oxygen centre outside a Sikh shrine. Sanctuary in their hour of need. The temple's president says we've helped more than 550 people in the past day. Without us, they wouldn't have survived. India's lack of oxygen supplies is taking its toll. There are reports 20 people died overnight because of shortages at one hospital. The government says it's deploying trains and the Air Force to transport supplies to hard-hit areas. Mumbai is one of the worst affected cities for COVID. Its streets lie deserted as doctors confront their worst fears.
Every day I feel this time, yes, in this wave we are a bit more scared as compared to the last wave. But every time what motivates me is that I have saved these many patients.
The World Health Organization says India's situation is a devastating reminder of what coronavirus can do. Its unfolding trauma shows little sign of abating as COVID engulfs so many. Neil Connery, ITV News.
Here, more than half of the UK population has now had their first COVID jab. Official figures show 33.5 million people have now received the vaccination. The NHS celebrated the milestone, describing it as an astonishing achievement. Success in fighting the virus means Wales is relaxing some extra COVID restrictions today. 6 people from different households can now meet outdoors there, bringing regulations in line with England and Scotland. Then on Monday, pubs, restaurants, cafes and other hospitality businesses are allowed to offer outdoor service again. And in America, health officials have lifted a temporary ban on the use of Johnson & Johnson COVID jabs there. Use of the single-dose vaccine had been paused over concern about rare blood clots seen in 15 women. But that's out of 8 million people who'd been vaccinated. Scientific advisors have now decided the benefits far outweigh the risks. A 14-year-old boy who was stabbed to death in East London has been named. Faraz Matu died shortly after the attack yesterday afternoon. Police say his family are devastated. 2 boys, aged 14 and 15, have been arrested on suspicion of murder. Witnesses say the teenager was wearing his school uniform when he was attacked. The Indonesian Navy now says they don't expect to find any survivors from its missing submarine, which vanished on Wednesday off the coast of Bali with more than 50 people on board. Debris has been found and all is believed lost. Ellie Pitt reports.
It's been another unsuccessful mission to find their colleagues. The Indonesian Navy came back to land after trying to find its submarine with 53 crew members on board. The sub went missing on Wednesday during a weapons exercise off the coast of Bali. Experts said the vessel would have run out of oxygen by this morning, and the discovery of debris has confirmed the crew's family's worst fears. At this time, we are changing from the sub-missing phase to the sub-sinking phase. The cause of the disappearance isn't clear, but the Navy chief told this press conference he thinks cracks have appeared gradually as the submarine sank lower and lower. If it was an explosion, it would have been picked up on sonar, he said. It's believed the submarine could have sunk as low as 2,000 feet, far below any survivable depth. This is a rescue turned recovery operation. And as the goal of the mission has changed, so too has the mood. Prayers have been held to remember those lost at sea. An American plane has joined the search for the wreckage as efforts now focus on finding out what went wrong here. Ellie Pitt, ITV News.
Sport, and England have retained the Women's Six Nations title with a hard-fought 10-6 victory over France. The tournament featured a new format this year due to the pandemic, and it didn't stop England from lifting the trophy. Will Mott has the action and the celebration.
The Women's Six Nations title, they are champions again in 2021.
The format may have been unique, but the outcome was familiar. England Six Nations champions for the third year in a row. In this winner-takes-it-all, neither side would take their chance, and it was the last minute of the first half before England made the breakthrough. Poppy Cleall's quick thinking matched by her strength to get the hosts over the line, eventually, and onto the scoreboard. 7-0 at the break.
England look like that might be over.
This final was all about attrition, and 2 French penalties later, the second off the post, there was 1 point in it with 7 minutes to play. But England held their nerve and Emily Scarratt held her course. 10-6 with seconds left. There would be one more decisive kick into touch for the championship. There's no doubt England are dominating Europe, but next year it's the World Cup. Will Mott, ITV News.
And Ireland secured third place in the tournament with a comfortable victory over Italy in Dublin. Ireland winger Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe marked her first Six Nations start by scoring 2 tries to seal a win by 25 points to 5. And in the final game of the day, Megan Gaffney got Scotland off to the perfect start against Wales. And a few moments ago, Scotland were leading 27 points to 13. Liverpool's ambitions of finishing in the top 4 of the Premier League were dealt a blow as they were held at home by Newcastle. Liverpool had led since the 3rd minute, but finally their resistance was broken when John Willock equalised for Newcastle with the last kick of the game. And finally, inspired by Captain Sir Tom Moore, another centenarian has been walking round his garden to raise money for the health service and those struggling with COVID. The Birul Islam Chowdhury challenged himself to walk 100 laps during Ramadan, aiming to raise money to help people affected by the virus here and in Bangladesh. He's far exceeded his goal and amazingly has inspired others in scores of other countries around the world to do the same. Sam Holder reports.
What started with a few steps has become a global movement. Last year, Birul Chowdhury began walking around his garden in London for charity. Today, he was joined by 10,000 people in 130 cities, from Bangladesh to Syria, Manchester
walk with the Wirsasa,
to Cambridge. Completing 50 laps every day is impressive enough for an 101-year-old. It's even harder when you're fasting for Ramadan.
Of course it is difficult, but if you think for the good of the benefit of the people who are dying, the people who are starving, the people who are, they will be happy if I walk and get the money.
For Birul, it's not just about charity, it's also about encouraging people to get healthy.
I do not know how to walk slowly.
Yeah, I know. For 101, you're in very good shape.
Because practice makes a man perfect. When you walk, you can walk more and more and more.
Birul has been given an OBE for his fundraising. He was inspired by the incredible achievements of Captain Sir Tom Moore, who passed away in February.
I shed tears in my eyes because of the feeling, willing, thinking. He was my companion, helps me.
Last Ramadan, Birul raised more than £400,000 for charity. With his garden walks now being replicated worldwide, it's an amount he's confident he'll double. Sam Holder, ITV News.
Quite an achievement, and that is it. I'll be back with the late news at 10:30. Do join me then. Until then, from us, bye-bye.